remember the night the world changed, the Chernobyl disaster. At 1:23 a.m., the Soviet Union accidentally opened the gates of hell. The night sky above the quiet city of Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant looked peaceful, too peaceful. Workers laughed in control rooms. Engineers drank tea. Operators checked glowing panels beneath fluorescent lights. Outside, the nearby city of Pripyat slept silently under the cold Soviet moon, and no one knew that within minutes, an invisible nightmare would poison the earth for generations. And once it began, there would be no stopping it. There would be no stopping it. The date was the 26th of April, 1986. Inside reactor number 4, engineers prepared for a late-night safety test. The goal sounded simple: determine whether the reactor's turbines could still generate enough electricity during a blackout before emergency generators activated. But inside the Soviet system, fear was more powerful than caution. Workers were exhausted. Safety systems were disabled. Warnings were ignored. And the reactor itself carried a hidden flaw nobody fully understood. The RBMK reactor, a massive Soviet nuclear design, was unstable at low power. Under the wrong conditions, it could become uncontrollable in seconds. That night, those conditions arrived. Let's see. Deep inside the reactor core, uranium atoms split apart, releasing unimaginable energy. Normally, control rods regulated the reaction carefully, but operators made one mistake after another. Power levels suddenly crashed. To recover the test, technicians withdrew too many control rods. Something strictly forbidden. The reactor became unstable, like a sleeping monster beginning to wake. Alarms flashed. Operators grew nervous. Still, the test continued. Then suddenly, power surged violently. The reactor started overheating faster than human minds could react. One engineer slammed the emergency shutdown button known as -5. It should have stopped everything. Dot 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 dot. Instead, dot 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 dot. It triggered the catastrophe because of a fatal design flaw. The control rods initially increased reactivity instead of reducing it. For a few horrifying seconds, the reactor's power exploded beyond imagination. Not 100%. Not 200%. Not 200%. Some scientists believe it surged to over 100 times normal power. Fuel channels ruptured, steam pressure built instantly. And then, boom, the first explosion tore through the reactor building like a bomb. A second explosion followed moments later. A massive fireball erupted into the night sky. Concrete roofs weighing thousands of tons were blasted apart like paper. Burning graphite rained across the facility. And for the first time in human history, a nuclear reactor core lay exposed to the open air. Workers staggered through smoke and debris without understanding what had happened. Some thought it was an electrical fire. Others believed hydrogen tanks exploded. Nobody realized they were standing beside one of the deadliest radioactive disasters ever created. The radiation was invisible. No smell. No sound. No warning. Just death floating silently through the air. Firefighters from nearby stations rushed toward the glowing reactor. They arrived without protective suits, without radiation equipment, without any idea they were walking into a radioactive inferno. A firefighter later described the air tasting like metal. Another said the reactor glowed with an eerie blue light. As they climbed onto rooftops to extinguish fires, pieces of radioactive graphite burned around their boots. Some picked up the fragments with bare hands. Within minutes, many began vomiting. Their skin turned red. Headaches exploded through their skulls. But they kept fighting the flames anyway. Because if the fire spread to nearby reactors, Europe itself could fire spread to nearby reactors. Europe itself could face catastrophe. Meanwhile, life in Pripyat continued almost normally. Children slept peacefully. Couples walked streets. People watched television. Yet invisible radioactive particles drifted over the city like poisonous snow. Parents unknowingly opened windows. Kids played outside. Nobody was warned. The Soviet government stayed silent for nearly 36 hours. The city remained exposed. Only after radiation levels became impossible to hide did officials finally order evacuation. Buses rolled into Pripyat at dawn. Loudspeakers announced residents would leave temporarily. Take only essentials. You will return in a few days. But they never returned again. Not ever. Homes remained frozen in time. Toys stayed on beds. Food sat on tables. Schools remained abandoned forever. Pripyat became a ghost city overnight. Far away in Stockholm, workers at a nuclear plant suddenly detected dangerous radiation on their own clothes. At first, they feared their reactor was leaking, but the radiation came from outside. Scientists traced the radioactive cloud across Europe. The Soviet Union could no longer hide the truth. The world finally learned. Chernobyl had exploded. It exploded. Inside the destroyed reactor, temperatures reached terrifying levels. The exposed core burned continuously, releasing radioactive material into the atmosphere day and night. Helicopters flew directly over the inferno. Pilots dropped sand, lead, clay, and boron into the reactor to smother the fire. Many received lethal radiation doses during these missions. Still, they continued because failure meant unimaginable consequences. Some experts feared the molten core could burn through the building and reach underground water reserves. If that happened, a massive steam explosion might contaminate huge parts of Europe permanently. So, another impossible mission began. 3 volunteers entered flooded underground tunnels beneath the reactor to drain water manually. The corridors were dark, radioactive, deadly. They knew they might never come back, yet they went anyway. Their actions likely prevented an even greater disaster. Then came the liquidators. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers, miners, engineers, and workers sent to clean the radioactive zone. Some shoveled radioactive debris from rooftops for less than 2 minutes at a time because radiation levels were so intense. Robots failed due to radiation damage, so humans replaced them. Men in thin protective suits ran across rooftops known as the most dangerous place on Earth. Grab debris, throw it over the edge, run back. Man. Again, many paid with their health, some with their lives, but without them, the disaster could have become far worse. The Soviet Union eventually built a massive concrete structure called the sarcophagus around Reactor 4 to trap radiation inside. Even then, fear remained. Radiation seeped into forests, rivers, soil, and villages. Entire communities vanished from maps. Animals mutated. Forests turned reddish, brown, and died from exposure. To this day, the surrounding exclusion zone remains one of the most contaminated places on Earth. Yet, strangely, nature returned. Wolves, deer, horses, and wildlife now roam through abandoned streets and silent buildings where humans once lived. Like the Earth, reclaiming a dead civilization. The disaster changed history forever. It exposed deep failures within the Soviet system. Secrecy, fear, and incompetence. Many historians believe Chernobyl accelerated the collapse of the Soviet Union itself. Because after the explosion, trust shattered. The government could no longer hide reality, and the world saw the terrifying cost of silence. Thousands suffered radiation-related illnesses over the years. The exact death toll remains debated even today. Some estimates count thousands. Others believe the long-term effects may have impacted hundreds of thousands across Europe. What makes Chernobyl so horrifying is not just the explosion, but the invisibility of the enemy. You cannot see radiation. You cannot feel it immediately. Yauta, it changes cells, destroys bodies, and poisons generations silently. That is what terrified the world most. Today, tourists visit the abandoned city of Pripyat wearing radiation monitors. Ferris wheels rust in silence. Classrooms decay slowly. Gas masks lie scattered across dusty floors. Nature grows through broken concrete. And Reactor 4 still sleeps beneath a giant steel containment structure called the New Safe Confinement, built decades later to prevent future leaks. But the memory of that night remains alive, a reminder of what happens when human arrogance collides with unimaginable power. Because on the 26th of April, 1986, the lights inside Chernobyl did not simply go out. They exploded, and for one terrifying moment in history, humanity stood face to face with its own destruction.